It is Tainted Donut here again, and I am ready to break down another one of the premium ships for you. Today we're going to be discussing the Commonwealth Tech Tree Perth. She's a little different than the Leander, which is she shares a class with, and we're going to kind of get into those differences. So, if you're familiar with the British light cruisers and all, then you kind of know that where I start is armor, and there's really not much to start with there. We've got 25 millimeter turret mounts, so they can get knocked out by HE rounds if they take a big enough hit. We've got that really thin 13 millimeter plating over most of it and a 10 millimeter superstructure. Your belt armor is only 100 millimeters, so again, not really much working with there. You do have a 32 millimeter deck over the center, over the widest part of the Citadel right there. But again, it's a British light cruiser. It's kind of like playing a DD. If you get hit, you're probably going to at least take an overpen. You can get some lucky bounces off the belt in some cases, but with the 25 millimeter turrets, that even a high angle hit from a 15-inch gun will pen them. So again, not working with a lot on the armor here. But as I usually do, we'll peel away some of the layers and kind of go into the internals. So as you see, the 25 millimeter goes all the way down the main barrel bits. So again, easy to get those guns knocked out, but that's very common on all the light cruisers in the game. The Citadel is actually a little bit of a weird shape from the front. As you can see, this is actually just another normal hitbox, but there's a bit of Citadel beneath it, as well as Citadel behind it. You get the Citadel plating underneath the exterior plating right there. Again, really not a lot of armor to work with. Peel back the casement, or the auxiliary room, my apologies, and that shows you that that's where this is. You got a little gap here and here, that's the auxiliary rooms. It does give you some protection from plunging fire hits because it's a lot of plates that can trip the fuse before it gets into the Citadel, but against those larger caliber rounds, it generally just isn't enough to really truly protect your Citadel. So, I said, as you can see, we've now moved it down to the Citadel wall. We've got a 37 millimeter strip in the center, but only 10 millimeters to the side, so you're not going to be stopping much. The 37 millimeter wall here, again, not going to stop much, but with all the layers, sometimes it can trip a shell, and since it passes through a section of the ship, it will detonate out here in this void area and only give you a penetrating hit. Again, this is not always the case. It can save you once in a while from eating the Citadel, but don't really, don't bet the farm on that one. Coming from the rear, it's again the 32 millimeter Citadel deck, the 37 millimeter to the rear. So again, we're not really working with much. There's really no quirky spots or anything really fancy with her armor to get into. Her hit points, again, we're only talking about 27,000 and a little bit of change, 20,100. Not a lot of hit points to really take a lot of hits, but as we'll get into later, she has other means of surviving. So again, if you do get caught in the open, you will likely end up getting a little bit of the squishy side. But now let's talk about her guns and where she starts differing from that Leander a little bit more. She has the same guns, the 152 millimeter or 6-inch guns, with same reload speed, more or less same turret traverse, all that. But unlike the British cruisers, she does not have short fuse AP, but she does have HE, so she can do an HE spam. She can light fires a lot more reliably without having to use her secondaries. It's the same velocity, the same arc, more or less the same range, 12.8. Again, talking more or less the same thing as a Leander here, the secondaries. They do fire quickly, however, you're only going to get 4 barrels per side, as they're 2 duels per side. They have a relatively short range, 5 kilometers, but they have a decent fire chance as well for secondaries. So, there's some good and some bad in with them. Their range, again, for the main gun's 12.8. It's a little bit short, but you have a little slight workaround with it that I'll cover later. Torpedo tubes, again, same as Leander. She can single fire them just like the Leander. 8-kilometer range, which works very good if you actually do a full concealment spec on her, because you only have roughly 1 kilometers where you can be detected without being able to fire off that torpedo. 61 knot speed at tier 6 is a very, very respectable torpedo, and overall, their damage is not anything to really sneer at. The 15,000 damage, which it can hurt pretty good, especially, since again you're only a tier 6, and the 1.3 kilometer detectability means that they will sneak up on someone. Not as good as a Pan-Asian Deepwater, but definitely better than some of the Japanese torpedoes out there. So that's covering her armament. It's pretty much this almost the same as the Leander minus the swap of short fuse AP for HE. So if you've played, again, I keep referencing it because it is a sister ship in the game, and if you liked the British cruiser line, then you will more than likely really enjoy the Perth, and that's why I keep comparing them. AA defense is actually a little different than Leander. She has the 50 cals here on the back. That's what 12.7 is. They're in a quad mount. They do not provide a lot of AA DPS. Um, you're only getting 11 AA DPS out of 5 quad mounts. So as you can see, they're not very effective for your short range. And again, they are extremely short range, 1.2 kilometers. So they might not even engage torpedo bombers sometimes if the CV's taking a long drop angle. You got the 20 millimeter Orlikins found on many of the Allied ships. And you only have 2 singles, so you're again not getting a lot of AA DPS out of them. At 2 kilometers, you're getting a whole 7 DPS. Not a lot working for you. And even the dual purpose, you're only getting a total of 38 DPS. So when it comes to AA, she is not really going to get the job done. You will swat a plane down once in a while, but you just don't rely on it. You know, battleships, don't think you can go snuggle up to the Perth and really get saved by it, because you probably have better AA than she does. So let's just, get that out of the way. Her maneuverability, though, is actually pretty nice. Her top speed, again, same as all the others in that light cruiser line, the 32.5 knots. The 640 turning circle is not bad, and the rudder shift's pretty responsive once you put that one module on her. She will come to the turn very, very quickly. She's a good handling ship that makes it easy to dodge those shells, because a lot of people will be wanting to shoot at you because they're hunting for that easy Citadel hit. So, her detectability by sea, 8.6. So, again, I was a little wrong off earlier, you've only got about a half a kilometer between where you can be seen and where you can launch those torpedoes. So it's a very small gap, makes it very easy to ambush, especially if you're kiting away from someone and you break contact. You really can leave torpedoes in your wake easily from 9 to 10 kilometers distance once you break the contact, and they will score the hits if they are tailing you. That's a very, very nice thing. The detectability by air, 6.1, so you can be lit from outside your AA range. It is annoying, but again, your AA is not that potent, so you really aren't going to discourage them anyway. Nothing really quirky on the assured detectability range, 2.0 is the standard, but this is key, the 4.5 when firing your main guns from smoke, because the Perth got a quirky smoke mechanic. And I say quirky because it's very, very interesting in how they did it without making it a pure cookie cutter of the Leander with just HE. They altered her smoke that we'll get into in a second, but the 4.5 makes the way her smoke works even better, because it's very, very hard for someone to get close enough to see you in that smoke. And now we'll really get into the why when we go to her modules. So we'll look at her ammunition and consumables, and we'll go to smoke first. As you can see with the premium, your smoke is active for 117 seconds if you take that smoke screen module, which if you have one to spare, I highly recommend putting it on this beast. The reload time is 160 seconds, so you're noticing there's only a very small window of 43 seconds where your smoke is not active. Now, what this really means is that you have a few seconds where you have to run around crazily to try to dodge the fire, and if you sit in your original smoke puff, that time is down from 43 seconds with the mod down to roughly 34 seconds. Not very long before you get up that next smoke. And what makes her smoke so unique is the fact that it's deployed for 117 seconds. That's how long the generator is active. If you drop your speed down to 1/4, you will remain inside your smoke puffs the entire time it is active. So you have a mobile smoke screen where you can slowly move and position yourself while still being more or less undetectable, with exception of radar or close range hydro, or someone getting inside that assured shooting distance. It's very, very useful for this ship, especially when you look at her other consumables. She's got the spotter plane, so in addition to spotting your enemies for you, it boosts out your range, so you can kind of, drift around on your smoke screen and drop those shells off at around 15 kilometers range. Very, very handy. Second up after that is the hydro. With her hydro range of 3.96, that window where someone can light you in your smoke that you can't hydro them is also relatively small. And her hydro active time is 110 seconds. So you have more or less the entirety of your smoke puff with the hydro up. So that first time you do it, or whenever you want to choose to do it, you can hydro and smoke and be very, very hard to sneak up on, because if they get too close, they misgauge the turn or don't slam the brakes on quick enough, whoever just spotted you shooting is also then going to get spotted by you with your hydro, so they won't be able to just kind of sit there and troll light you. Very, very good little setup to have. The reload time on the hydro, it's a little long, so that's not a trick you can pull every smoke puff, but it is definitely a good tool to have when you feel like the enemy's going to get too close and spot you, or you feel like you got a DD creeping up on your smoke screen. You know you can, hey, I can throw that hydro, and first I'll see the torpedoes, and second, hey, I may pick up the DD that just spotted me even though I'm in my smoke. So, again, very, very handy setup of consumables. Same damage control party as standard for cruisers, so nothing quirky going on there. Her upgrades, I like to use a lot of the premium upgrades, and if you've played the game for a while and gotten some super containers, sometimes you have quite a few built up, and this is a good ship to throw them on. So, their back module slot, the steering gears, that's where you get that amazing rudder shift time. It's very, very useful on this ship, and I would highly recommend going with it over the other option of the damage control, because honestly, the 15% time off of fire and flood, it's only netting you 4.5 seconds of fire time recovery, which is what you're mostly going to be dealing with. So it's honestly, it's not really worth it as much on cruisers as it is on battleships. The smoke generator, again, we've gone over it. It really, really alters the length of the smoke puff, how long your smoke's being deployed, for only losing a half a second on the puff's duration. It is the best trade possible that you can make. And I honestly don't really use the smoke generator on too many other ships. Actually, I don't think I use it on any other ships at all. This is really the only ship that I mount that upgrade on. And if you don't have a smoke generator, though, I would highly recommend going with the aiming systems mod to tighten up your groupings a little bit. You could also potentially go with the main battery mod, because your turret traverse is pretty generous. So either one of those would be a good substitute if you don't have that smoke generator mod. Coming over here to the next slot, I use that hydro. That's how I get that amazing hydro uptime. But again, you may not have one. You may have used some other ships. Maybe you just haven't gotten lucky in a super container. I would recommend going with either the propulsion or the steering gears mod, because you need this thing to be mobile. The damage control, reducing the risk of fire or flood, not nearly as important as keeping mobile. So if you don't have the hydro, again, you want to live in this land somewhere, both of which affect your mobility. I personally think it's flip a coin between the two of them. If you've got one in inventory and not the other, go with the one you got, save the credits. You know, make your life a little easier on it that way. Coming over here, that first slot, I mean, you could take the spotter aircraft mod. This would be one of the few ships I would consider using it on. I'm not a big fan of this mod in general for giving up my main armaments mod, because the extra 20% hit points that it essentially gives your turrets with their low armor rating really, really helps. You need those to keep those turrets in the game, because they can get knocked out way too easy with Battleship AP hitting them. So it's just something that I personally prefer. But hey, if you try the spotter plane and it works out for you, I would love to hear it, maybe see a video of it, and I'll be more than happy to then give it a try and possibly change my mind on it. But as of right now, I just think the main armaments mod personally is more effective. But like I said, feel free to prove me wrong on it. I will always admit I'm wrong on something. So, again, just my opinion. Now, the big question is she worth it? Well, she is a fun ship, but she's not an easy ship to play. And one of the the drawbacks to her is there is no Commonwealth tech tree. She is not a Royal Navy ship in wargaming terms, because she is not part of the Royal Navy line. Her captains cannot be used in Royal Navy ships and vice versa, so you can't train up a captain for a Minotaur or anything else on that Brit line. Any captain you make for her is going to be more or less for her only, because the only other ship to bear the Commonwealth flag in the game right now is the Vampire, which is a DD, and I wouldn't set up my Vampire captain the same as my Perth captain. So that's kind of why it's one of those ships where if you think you're going to enjoy playing it, get it. But if you're looking for a crew trainer or anything, I would say definitely look elsewhere, because she's not going to be training any crews for you. And to my understanding, as of right now, Wargaming has no plans of making a full Commonwealth tech tree. I personally think that's a little disheartening, because there were a lot of, brave, proud sailors and historic ships that flew under the Australian, the New Zealand, the Canadian flag, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of them in the game. Again, that's just me personally. I would love to see them in the game. I would love to see there be a Commonwealth cruiser line, even if it was a lot of the clones of British ships, because I mean, we already have one clone line in the game. It's the Pan-Asian destroyers. It's all, mostly Soviet and American destroyers. So what would be the harm in doing a little bit of a clone tree with maybe some different characteristics? Because they've already done it once, so again, some people may not agree with that, but this is just an opinion kind of piece. And everyone's got one. So, more or less, this thing, you would set it up just like a British cruiser. I always take the preventive maintenance, keep my modules intact longer. The expert marksman helps spin those turrets. I would say also Last Stand's not a bad one. I'm likely to get that on my next point. I don't have a maxed out commander because I just don't play her that often. But this is also an interesting spot to take your smokescreen expert. So you've got a bigger puff as you're rolling around in it. It makes it a little bit harder for people to really figure out exactly in that puff where you're at. Also, it makes it easier for maybe a buddy or two to sneak in there with you and kind of troll along. And let me tell you, if those two other buddies are Perths, you can really do a high-quality troll maneuver, because the way 3 Perths will work is you can always have a hydro up and you can always have a smoke screen up. You can pretty much almost always have a spotter plane up. So you just got these 3 Perths with vision and hydro in one little smoke puff cruising down the center of the map, or wherever they want to go, and you can honestly do a lot of area denial with it. It's not the most mobile tactic because you are only going at quarter speed, but it's very, very effective. You essentially cruise up to the engagement, try to remain unspotted, don't open up your guns until you're in the smoke puff, and I can tell you that any ship that charges it definitely ends up a little bit sorry that it made the attempt. So there you have that with the smokescreen expert. Your tier 4 skills, I would definitely say go with the concealment expert. Again, likely for the remainder of my skill points, I'm going to be at 14. I'm going to have Last Stand as well. That'll give me 4 more points left. And from there, I'm likely to take the demolition expert, and demolition expert and priority target, or take IFHE. I've been kind of weighing both my options on that one. So, again, fun ship to play. I absolutely adore playing her. She is, again, definitely a ship that will give you giggles. She can also give you some frustration at times because of how squishy she is, just like a British cruiser. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to look for something to train your crews, sadly, she will not be the ship for you, because there just is no stated future for the Commonwealth flag in this game. It is a little disappointing to me. Again, that's just me. I would love to see more Canadian, Australian, New Zealand ships. But, again, I'm just stating my opinion on that one. So, there you have it. If you're looking for a ship that's fun to play and you just want to waste some time and have some good laughs, I say she's worth the money. If you're looking for that crew trainer, I gotta move on. You definitely have to take a pass. But there you guys have it. If there's any ships you would like me to break down, anything you're thinking about considering buying, and you want to hear what I think about it, please just drop it in the comments. Let me know, and I will try to get to it as quickly as possible. And as usual, everybody, have a nice day.